right, we are live on the Content Lab podcast. We're on episode 11 with Mariah Moore. Mariah is a film director. She's the co-owner and CEO of Two Times Production. Mariah Director recently released a movie, The Ultimate Test, which was released in, well, it was released now, but it was the 2018 movie. She also co-directed, produced, and edited the films A Decade of Fitness and The Redeemed and the Dominant. In addition to that, Mariah is the director and producer of the upcoming film called Next Generation, which we're going to talk about that a little bit later. And it's currently the post-production stage and expected to be released in July, if I'm not wrong. Is that right, Mariah?
That's correct.
All right. Thank you so much for being on the show.
No problem.
I was going to ask you, do you say is it Two Times Productions?
Times two productions.
Times Two Productions. Okay.
Yeah.
I knew it was either one or the other.
Yeah.
So, well, first of all, happy Mars Day, even though it's a day late.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, you have twins, right?
Yeah, 2-year-old twins. Crazy.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how old are they? 2-year-old, you said?
Yeah,
Second.
2 years old, 2.5.
Awesome.
Wild. It goes by so quick.
I know. Well, yeah, thank you so much for doing this. It's crazy that I know you have all these things going on, kids and all that, and you still find time to do things like this. So I really appreciate that.
No problem at all. It's stoked to be here.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about you first. Take me back to you growing up. Where you from?
So I am born and raised in Santa Barbara, California. Yeah, I've been here my whole life, just Californian through and through, and grew up in a pretty large family. I'm one of 9, second oldest of 9. It's pretty wild. My older sister, she's 30, I believe 32, and it goes all the way down to 7 years old. It's wild. Big family. Yeah, so grew up in a big family, and then got into film and photography when I was in junior high. I was an assistant photographer to my mom, who was a wedding photographer and portrait photographer. And then slowly that kind of morphed through junior high and high school into me really getting into film. And then it kind of just naturally progressed to where I am today, which is crazy and awesome.
Yeah. So did you start being a wedding videographer? Was it like your first step into filmmaking?
No, it was just photo. I'm trying to, it's actually even hard to remember it, because it's I kind of don't even know how I ended up getting into video. I think that it was you know what it was is, so I started watching, I saw Batman Begins by Christopher Nolan when I was 12, and I was obsessed with it. And from then on, I was like, I either want to make movies or I want to become a comic book artist. That was my goal in life at 12, 13 years old. And so, but at that point I had only been doing photography, and I continued to only do photography for a couple of years. But I kind of had that thought in the back of my mind that I was like, okay, I'm obviously not going to be a comic book artist. So it's going to have to be a film, get into film.
Yeah.
And so I actually started doing stop motion photos with my photo camera, because that was before you could, it was when the DSLRs with the video options were starting to come out. And so, but we didn't have that. I didn't have access to something like that. So I started doing stop motion. And then it wasn't actually until high school, it was my graduating year, that I started again. I finally got a camera that had the video option, and I started doing videos. So
it's pretty interesting that you it started with you wanting to make movies right away. I feel like most people evolve, they start doing something, I don't know, recording, whatever, and then once they start getting involved and their business starts growing, they're like, okay, I want to be a film director or something. I want to make bigger productions. So I find it interesting that it was right away you're like, oh yeah, let's make movies.
Yeah, that was my goal. It's cool. It's since about 12 or 13 years old, I was I want to be a film director when I grow up. That's what I want to do.
Dang. So, well, we'll talk about you now being a film director in a minute. But tell me about your beginnings in CrossFit. Did you find CrossFit through film, or was the opposite? You already were doing CrossFit, and then you kind of introduced film into I'm gonna start shooting some people at the gym.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So yeah, I found CrossFit like a month before I was going to graduate high school. A gym had just opened up in my hometown. And the town that I live in, even now, is pretty small. And so one of my best friend at the time, she was telling me like, oh, this new gym opened up. They're like old family friends. You want to come try it with me? And I was like, yeah, sure. And it was a CrossFit gym. And so like growing up, like I was never into sports or anything like that. I've always been like a competitive person, but I didn't have that sport outlet. And so when I tried CrossFit for the first time, I was hooked instantly because it was like that competitive outlet for me that I had never had before growing up, because I was into like theater and things like that. And so I was instantly hooked on CrossFit. And then yeah, it just became one of those things where it's like I started doing some photos around in the gym, just because I was there all day every day because I loved it.
Mhm.
And then I started meeting people, and I met Torrin Simpson. I met him
Okay.
at the gym because his brother, Torrin's from the same town as me. So I met his brother, and so then every time Torrin would come in to visit, they'd see me messing around with cameras, and Torrin would be like, oh, he ended up becoming a mentor for me. And then there was another photographer who kind of became a mentor for me. And then yeah, so then I started doing video content for the gym here and there, and it kind of just progressed from there. So yeah, but
What year
that's
was that when you joined the CrossFit gym?
2012.
Okay, so pretty early into
Yeah,
the CrossFit
actually,
stage.
yeah, on Saturday, just 2 days ago, was my 10-year anniversary of doing CrossFit.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I guess, yeah, you posted something today about it, right?
Yeah, I was
But
like, that was wild. I realized that last week. I was like, oh my God, it's been a decade. I've
I
been doing
know.
this for a decade. That's crazy.
Yeah, you were mentioning
Crazy.
how time flies by. Like I've been in the United States for almost 11 years, and when I think about it, I'm like, I just can't believe it. It just
Yeah.
like it went from like 4 years to 10. Like I
Yeah.
didn't even notice those like 6 years in between.
Right?
That's
It's
super fast.
crazy.
Yeah. Uh,
Crazy.
so you start making videos just for the gym.
Mhm.
Obviously, Tori noticed that you have some skills, and then how does it progress for you too? Because if I understand right, you were hired by CrossFit. You work at CrossFit HQ, right?
Yeah.
So
So
how was that process of like you getting hired by them?
so it was yeah, I think so. I had been when did I get hired? What year? I think early 2014. Yeah, I think no, December, either December of 2013. Sorry, let me think about this. Yes, okay. So I started CrossFit in May 2012. So then I was doing CrossFit. I was just, graduated high school 2012, going to college, working at Starbucks, right? Just doing my thing. And then in mid to late, I think it was late 2013, Torn was like, hey, CrossFit's looking to hire some production assistants for the update show. And that's like, that was like, that's like broadcast stuff. And he was like, it's like bottom of the totem pole. You'll probably, I don't even know if they're going to be able to give you like good hours or not, but like, this is an opportunity if that's something that you'd be interested in. And so I was like, yeah, done. So I applied. I went and interviewed in, I believe, December of 2013. They offered me a job right away. Again, it was like bottom of the totem pole, like you're wrapping wires and, and working the audio board
Yeah.
and getting people coffee kind of thing. And I quit all of my college classes, and I quit my job, and I moved up to Santa Cruz, which is about 3.5 hours north of my hometown, and
Nice.
started working as a production assistant at CrossFit. So,
Nice.
and Torrin
And
was working there at the time.
yeah, 2014. So that was before all the movies, right? Like at that point,
Yeah.
how was the team back in? I started crossing 2016, so I don't know much before then. So was there a
Yeah.
lot of like already media people getting involved, kind of like growing the production team?
Yeah. Yeah. The production team felt pretty established at that point. It's actually funny now because people consider me like I've been told, oh, you're OG. And it's like, I
Okay.
still feel like the new kid on the block in a way, because that's what I felt like when I was brought on. Like there was Heaver, Mars, Ian Wittenberg, Torin, handful of other people were already there and had been there for a few years. And so it felt pretty established already when I started working there. So
Awesome. And how was the process of, because you said you started pretty much as a, I don't know, like a
at the
PA kind of.
bottom. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you start like making your way up into? Let's talk up until like 2000, until the first movie that you co-produced. Let's talk about like the new movie after that. But so
Yeah.
from the moment you were hired until the first movie, which was 2017
That was
or
just
some
Fittest on Earth. It was
Fittest on Earth.
2015 was Fittest on
Okay,
Earth, and I
Fittest.
believe that was, and then 20, and the
So
Froning film. I don't remember what year that came
so
out.
I think it was released in 2016, right? But it was the
Yes.
2015 movie. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, and then the Froning film was released in 2015, right?
15, I think so. Yeah.
2015. Yeah. So when you get brought on as a production assistant back in the day for the update show, they would kind of just test you out to see what you were good at in what areas. So you'd try pretty much everything. You'd work the audio board, you'd edit, you would help light, you would help whatever it was, you would help to do everything so that they could figure out where you were best suited. And so I had already been editing a bit of my own content back home before I got hired, and so I was okay at editing. And so they had me do a lot of the editing for the show, and I really, really enjoyed that, like editing the B-roll and any kind of packages that we used. And I really enjoyed that. And I got along really well, I think, with people. And so I made friends pretty quickly within the office, and one of them was Tyson Oldroyd, who at the time he was the coordinating producer for CrossFit, so he managed all of the content creators that were not involved in the broadcast side of things. So, he was Heber's boss, Marston's boss, Michael Dalton's boss, like everybody's boss. So I knew that eventually that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be on his team. I wanted to be a storyteller. I didn't want to be a production assistant long term. That's just not what I wanted to do. And so after about 6-ish months of working there, like I had really felt like I got into my groove and I was really enjoying it. And I started asking Tyson for some work on the side with my current boss's approval. And so Tyson started giving me a little bit of editing here and there just to help out, which was a nice creative outlet for me. And so I built a relationship with him, and then I would probably, I probably went in and I probably annoyed everybody, but I'd go ask people for advice or like wanted to see what they were doing or things like that, like Ian Wittenberg and Torin and them. And so by the time the Froning film was being made, I believe I had been there for about a year. Maybe I can't even remember.
Yeah, it should be around a year, if
About a year.
2014.
Yeah. Anyway, so Heber was pretty much doing the entire film by himself at the time, Heber Cannon. And Tyson came to me and to my boss, Charlie Doobie, and was like, hey, Heber needs some assistance in editing. Like he can't do this whole thing by himself because he's got a shit ton of other stuff he's got to do. And so I was brought on to assist Heber in the edit. So I worked very closely with him on that film, even in how we structured the layout of the storyline and everything like that. Like I assisted him a lot with that. And so, yeah, I helped edit that film. And then about a year later, I got a job offer down in LA with a pretty big company. And I was ready to quit my job because at that point I was still a production assistant and it wasn't what I wanted to do. And I knew I wanted to be a film director. And I was like, well, maybe this will get me closer to LA. Like I can get a little bit closer to the action. And so I went to my boss at the time and was like, hey, I've really enjoyed my time here. I've really learned a lot. This has been, great for me, but I think it's time for me to move on. I have another job offer. And Joe Novello, who is just an incredible human being, he was like, what can we do to keep you? And I said, well, honestly, I'd have to move over to Tyson's team. Like I need to get into storytelling for me to feel satisfied still being here. And he was like, okay, cool. Like I'll go talk to Tyson right now. So he went and talked to Tyson and Tyson brought me onto his team. And pretty much at that point, like I had a pretty good relationship with everyone and I had helped Heber on Froning and I had done some storytelling of my own. And I was kind of just baptism by fire, thrown right into there. Okay, now you're a co-director. Like,
That's awesome.
Good luck, sink or swim.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I really like about what you said. First is that obviously you started from the bottom. It's kind of like you saw the opportunity and you took it, right? And you're like, okay, I'm gonna start here, but you had your goals very clear. You wanted to be a film director, and then
Mhm.
you said that you felt like you were annoying a lot of people because you were asking them questions all the time, like advice
Yeah.
and all that. And that's something that I mean, it's just super important. We mention it often on the podcast to people usually ask like in the comments or like, so um I don't know, Dalton, how do you do to improve your skills, stuff like that. And usually
Mhm.
most people, that's the answer, is just like find people that you
Mhm.
really admire, people that you look up to, and ask for advice. Don't be shy. Like you'll be surprised how many people are willing to help you, even though they are, at a completely different level at this point.
Yeah.
um, and another thing that you mentioned that's super important, it's you were building relationships early on, right? Like you said, like, I feel like people really like me, like, I had a good relationship with everybody. That's another aspect that I think it's super important when working with teams specifically. And I will say, obviously I wasn't there to see what's your experience there, but just by all those things, kind of like they see like, okay, she's a good team player, she knows what she's doing, like it's time for her to move up, right?
Yeah, and that's not to say that there wasn't when you have multiple directors on a film when you're co-directing, that's not to say that there was not tons of headbutting and things
Yeah.
like that. It was a lot of strong personalities with very strong ideas for how we wanted things to go. And so there definitely was a lot of headbutting, but there was also a lot of really good compromise, a lot of healthy conversations and just pushing through so that we could get create the best product possible.
Yeah.
So it was a very humbling experience as well.
Absolutely. And once you started working on like co-direct the films, was that like your that
Oh, I think I lost your audio.
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it got muted. Anyways, what was it talking? Okay, yeah. Once you got into the co-directing the films, was that your main like job every year, or you still had to work with like the announcements and all that?
Yeah, yeah, yes and no. The big project that we were working on were the documentaries every year, but we were also doing the Road to the Game series.
Okay, yeah.
So we would go capture film with the athletes throughout the season with the intentions of we would hold some footage for the documentary and then we would also be editing and pushing out these Road to the Game series. And then I actually I did a lot of other content on the side as well for what we would call core content, which was more of like the CrossFit affiliate stories and things like that. So I worked on a lot of that kind of that stuff as well. I was actually working on a different documentary. I was juggling multiple documentaries while employed. Unfortunately, the one that I had been working on, it didn't end up going anywhere just because of the structural changes that happened in 2018. Never got to see the light of day, but yeah, we did a lot. It was a
Yeah,
lot.
for sure. Because just making the film, it's a whole year. You're pretty much
Mhm.
you're capturing from the open, all the interviews in between, like, training. At that point was regionals up until the games, and then you go straight to editing, right? That
Mhm.
movie,
Yep.
and while you're pretty much recording the one for the year after.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's
that's why
exactly
I
what
was
would
wondering.
happen.
I wonder if that was your main thing at that point. Um,
Yeah, so it was from about August until December. That's all we were working on was the documentary. Before that was all capturing the season and then editing the Road to the Games series and getting those published as quickly as possible.
yeah, and I was gonna ask. So you co-directed with Heber and Mars, right? The first movie. How does it work? How do you split like your task for the movie? Like, do you all have like hands on the editing? Like, do you all
Mhm.
produce? How does it work
Um,
when it's there's three directors for a movie?
yeah, so on the for shooting wise, I would usually I would usually get dished the shoots that nobody wanted to go on. So I was the one that was because the Australia trips, nobody wanted to go on the Australia trips because it's terrible travel days, very long travel days. So I was the one that would get dished those ones because I was more junior than everyone else, which I didn't mind. I thought it was fantastic. And then Heber Mars and Ian Wittenberg, who was employed at the time as well, and another co-director. They would usually take like the top dog shoots, which was great. So that's how that would get dished out. And then editing wise, we would edit like so for like Road to the Games. we would split the editing based on who shot what, because it was easier to handle our own footage. So I would edit my footage for the episode. So it was, if it was like a Tia and Katrin Road to the Games episode, I would edit all the Tia stuff because I would usually be the one shooting with Tia, and then Heber or Mars or whoever it was would edit the Katrin stuff, and then we would just stitch them together. And that's kind of how it worked as well. For the documentaries, we would just divide by days. So usually, I would take a full day of competition, Heber would take a full day of competition, Marston would take a full day of competition, and Ian, before he moved on, would take a full day of competition. That's just how we would edit it. That's how we would split the editing.
And super interesting.
Yeah.
And talk to me about the pre-production stages of a movie. So right, you obviously know, you have in mind who's gonna do well, right? But it's early on the season. How do you guys like prepare everything? Just like, do you guys sit down and be like, okay, so these are the people that we need to capture leading up to the games, and then how does like the story starts building from there? I guess it'll be even better to ask you about that with the recent film, but talk to me with it whenever you had other people with you working with you.
Yeah, we would, I think, I mean, back in the day, maybe not so much now, but definitely back in the day, we were pretty close to the machine in the sense that we had a really good sense for who was going to do well at the games that year. Or we had a very good sense of like who had a personality that came across really well on camera, or was really somebody who was really fun to watch. And so we would pick characters based on that, who was going to perform well and who was entertaining, and we would start to build the story around them. We would follow them closely. We would find whatever it was that the story we wanted to tell. But then at the same time, you'd go to the games and it is a documentary. We are documenting, and there's a lot of times where we didn't know what the actual storyline was until after the games. And that's when we would go do our post interviews. So usually like the top 6 finishers or so, like the top 3 on the men and the top 3 women, we would go visit after the games. And we would do their master interviews for the documentaries then. So like, excuse me. So like for Redeemed and the Dominant, when Ricky Garrard tested positive for a banned substance, like obviously we didn't know that was going to happen. We actually didn't know that his A sample had tested positive until until days before Heber and I were supposed to head out to Ricky to film with him. And so we had to create a storyline around that. So that was really handled in post. That was really handled in, okay, now we know this is a storyline. So we're going to have to start talking to people, interviewing people about this concept without revealing to them what's going on, because at that point the world didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, because I remember it was many people were asked like similar questions, right, about PEDs and substances. That was 2000. What film was that? 2019? No, yes.
That's 17. That was 17. Yeah.
Gotcha. The years pass by so fast.
I know, it's wild.
Yeah. So talking about the 2018, obviously that was it was a film that was a lot of people were waiting for it, right? It was supposed to be released, or you guys were working on it, and then everything happened. Some people got fired from CrossFit HQ, and the movie never happened, right? So you end up being the director for the film that it was recently released. When was it exactly? December last year?
December, yeah.
Okay, so how did that all happen?
Oh man,
starting from the moment that you guys they let you know, hey, there's no film right this year, this is not gonna happen, to the point that now you're the director, right? You have to create the storyline for the whole movie.
So 2018, we had captured the entire film. Everything was captured. Right before the games, there were rumblings of like things were going to change. We knew things were coming down the pipe. We just didn't know what, but we had a pretty good sense that shit was about to hit the fan. I remember even working on I think I've said this before, but I remember working on our last episode of Road to the Games, and I had gone out and shot with Tia, and Heber had gone out and shot with Katrin. And Heber and I were working pretty late one night, just trying to finish up the episode because we were supposed to head out to the games like within a few days. And I remember Heber saying, he was editing the outro for that episode. He said, if this is the last thing that I ever edit for CrossFit, then I'm gonna make it really fucking sick. And so he like stayed up all night. But I remember that, like, that stuck with me because it was like we knew something was coming. We knew there was a
Yeah.
possibility that like it was all gonna come down. And so we went to the games, and then like literally a week after the games, the layoffs start happening. So the first wave of layoffs, a big portion of the media team was let go. I had been having conversations with Tyson at that point, telling him that I think I was ready to be pulled off the documentaries because the travel was just killing me. The stress was like I was just sick all the time. I was like, I really just need to like take a year off from this because it's too much right now, physically and mentally and emotionally. I was like, I can't really handle it right now. And so I was pulled off of the doc. I was hoping that after that, the 2018 doc, I was going to take a year off from the documentaries. But then it worked out that because these layoffs were happening and the media team was starting to change, Tyson was like, okay, well, since you already had these intentions, then I'm pulling you off of the documentary, and Heber and Mars are going to continue forward with it, but they're not going to go work on the games team and no longer work for Tyson. And so I had a good cry that day because that was pretty hard, being pulled off of something that I had spent the past 7 months working on. And then Heber and Mars went off to do the final interviews with the rest of the athletes. I think the only one that they hadn't captured was Kia's before, unfortunately, they were also let go. And then, but at that point, I was no longer involved in the documentary. So when Heber and Mars got let go, that was like, okay, the documentary's not being made anymore. And my understanding is that they continued to try to get rights to the documentary as soon as they were let go. And then I was let go the following February. That was like the final wave of the media team getting let go. I was in that final wave. Tyson was let go as well, and everybody else. Dalton was let go on the same day as us. So anyway, I was working behind the scenes pretty closely with Tyson because at that point, Tyson and I were expecting twins together. You know, we got married in 2019. But we were working pretty quietly behind the scenes trying to get the rights to the film as well. We really wanted to see it completed. And then things kind of died down after a couple years. And then in about March last year, I was approached by Justin Berg, and I was offered the opportunity to bring the film back to life. And so I was like, yes, yes, 100%.
Cool.
Yes, let me do it. I will do it.
Yeah. So pretty much for all that period of time, do you think that movie was never going to happen, or you still had hopes? Like, I mean, at some point, you know.
Yeah, I was very hopeful the entire time that it was going to happen. I felt pretty confident that it would happen eventually. I didn't know who was going to make it. I didn't know if I was going to get it. I didn't know if Heber and Mars were going to get it. I didn't know if they were going to hand it off to anyone else. You know, I was at peace with whatever happened. I just wanted to see that film get made because it was a really great year of capturing. I was very happy with the footage that we had captured that year.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about the film now because I remember being super excited whenever it was getting when it was announced, right? Like, you know, the movie is gonna happen. It's gonna get released in December. Obviously, pre-ordered it, watch it like right when it came out, and I didn't realize how much I forgot about that year. When I was watching the film, I'm like, oh my god, like yes, I remember. Like now, I remember this happening, and like it was just it was a great year for CrossFit. Like the events were really cool. And I really think that you did an excellent job in the movie because there was also like a lot of things that I'd never seen before, like some people getting interviewed that were never interviewed that much. For example, like Castro, I don't think Castro has ever talked that much in a movie, or Boss, right?
Yeah, Boz was new. That was Boz was new, and he brought a lot to the film for sure. I love
And
Boz. I
yeah,
love
I was
hearing
gonna
from
say
Boz.
he's such an interesting person in the CrossFit scene, and he's been around forever, and you always see him like kind of like behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to actually see like, you know, him talking about many different things in CrossFit.
Yeah, he's got a great perspective on things.
Yeah, and he knows, I mean, so much about the sport, in and out, everything he's done with the sport, and now he's the general manager, right, for the CrossFit Games, or the director.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the titles
Yeah,
are
like
anymore, honestly.
the new Dave Castro, pretty much,
Yeah,
for the
something like
CrossFit
that.
Games. Okay. Gotcha. And yeah, I
Event director,
realized
maybe.
event director, something like that.
Is that something? Yeah, that sounds
And
right.
yeah, as I mentioned, like I didn't realize how much I didn't remember about the movies. And I can only imagine that that was happening to you too, right? Like
Yeah.
it's so many years after, and then they tell you,
Hmm.
hey, here is you 2000, you're gonna be
Yeah.
making the 2018 movie. How do you go like, okay, how do I create a story behind this?
Yeah, so I it was interesting. I think the big question that we asked ourselves was, how do I make this relevant now? Like it's been X amount of years. What was it, like 3 years at that point? I was like, it's been
Mhm.
3 years now. How do I make this relevant to today?
Correct. Yeah.
Um, and so that was the task. I also had to sit down and rewatch all of the live feeds from that year so that I could remember what the storylines were happening or what funny moments happened. And then I had to sit down and rewatch all of the interviews that we had captured that year so that I could remember, this funny moment that Vellner had or whatever. Um, and then amazingly, we also had to go out and interview Tia because Tia's interview was not captured that year. So she had to like go rewatch some of the stuff so she could remember that year of competition so that she could do the whole master interview for
Nice.
for the film, which was crazy. I can't believe she was able to remember so much from her experience. But yeah, so yeah, the big question though was, how do I make this relevant today? And I think that something that stuck out to me was like that there was a side. Everybody looks at 2018 as like the year that things kind of imploded, essentially, that everything changed. And I knew that story had been told many times before of, this is what happened in 2018 with the CrossFit Games, but we always heard it from the outside perspective. Like I really wanted to showcase the perspective of what things were look like or what was happening internally as best I could in the most sensitive manner that I could. And so that was something that I really wanted to do, even though the changes started happening after the games. I knew I drew from the experience of there were rumblings, like we went into the games knowing that something was happening. We didn't know what, but we knew changes were happening. And so I really wanted to portray that. We all went, like Tyson took the entire team out to dinner every single night after each day of competition. And there were a lot of nights where I'm like, we need to go to bed. Like we need to rest up. And he knew, we didn't know, but he knew he was about to lose most of his team.
Mm.
And so he wanted to make it the best games possible. He went all out with the media that year, like giving us the best camera gear we could get that year because he knew it was going to change. And a lot of people shared that sentiment of think they knew things were going to change, and so they went all out that year. And so I really wanted to share that side of things. I wanted to share that perspective because we hadn't heard from it yet or
Yeah,
heard that perspective yet.
that's awesome. So who was also involved in making the movie? Once you get the rights to the movie, do you have anybody else helping you edit, or it was pretty much just all you?
No, yeah, so I brought in Ian Wittenberg.
Hmm.
He's OG. He was around for ages. Was let go back in 18. I can't remember. It was like 2017 maybe. But I brought him in to help edit, and so he's just an incredible human being. I loved working with him back in the day. He really took me under his wing when I first moved onto the team, and he really stood up for me in a lot of situations, and just taught me a ton. And so obviously, I was like, I want to bring you back into the fold, because you're just a talented human being and somebody I want to work with.
Yeah.
And so he co-edited the film with me. And then I also worked pretty closely with a couple other people. Torrin Simpson, he helped me with some of the shooting. He went and picked up some of the post interviews with me, and then I would just bounce some ideas off of him. But really, it was really me and Ian for the most part from start to finish, just on the editing side, because that's really where the storytelling happens, is in the editing
Yeah,
edit bay.
I was just gonna talk about that. The thing that interests me the most about every movie is the post production part of it, because obviously you get approached to do the movie, and you get all the footage, right? So you have a hard drive with many terabytes of footage,
Hmm.
and then it's always like interesting to me, like how do you sit down and start like, okay, this is how the movie's gonna start. How do you start the storytelling? Like, do you start exchanging like it just kind of like blows my mind. I mean, I've done 1 minute videos. I guess I've done a little more than that, but the point of like, you know, creating a movie, it's not that easy, because it's got to be a story that's gonna, you know, attract people, and people are gonna enjoy what they're watching, and you got to keep them entertained for the whole amount of the movie. So what's your post-production process once you get all the footage?
Yeah, so I had some concepts that I really wanted to explore in the 2018 film, um, to the best of my ability, because everything had already been captured years earlier. So it's a lot harder to manipulate stuff when you can't go into shooting having these concepts in mind. But like I knew there was some things that I wanted to showcase. So I really wanted to talk about um, the programming a little bit more, in the sense of like how it translates into real life, or um, the mental aspect of what it takes to be a CrossFit athlete, but also how it, you know, CrossFit athletes share the same thought process and thinking as your average day CrossFitter, where we seek out pain, you know, we seek out these hard things because we know that we're going to be better for it. And so honestly, Ian Wittenberg is just such a talented individual that I kind of just, you know, I gave him his portion, like, you're going to edit up until this point, but here are the concepts with the events that, like, I would really like to see this happen. And he was like, okay, cool. And he would just go out and edit it, you know, which is crazy. He's just a phenomenal, talented human being. So that's about it. Like, I just had concepts. Sorry, road noise.
Oh, you're
I
good.
had I had concepts that I really wanted to explore, and I just kind of handed those off to him, and he, you know, he did it in his own way. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
I wanted to talk about a topic that I think a lot of people want to hear. So once I posted the you know, who would you like me to have on that next couple of podcasts, your name was mentioned many times. I said Mariah Moore, Mariah Moore.
Mhm.
And I think right after that, I had Carly Creative on one of the episodes, and somebody, either me or somebody on the comments, asked her like, who is your like biggest inspiration? And she mentioned her name. She said that it's Mariah Moore, because she's opened, you know, a lot of doors for many different people in the, you know, in our industry, many different females in the industry to, you know, she obviously said a couple of nice things about you. And then you shared not that long ago a post that was really awesome. I'm gonna read it real quick, and then we're gonna talk about it.
Yeah.
Um, you posted, I think it was a week ago. You said it was never about popularity or recognition. It was never about dominating the space. It was about opening the door for those who come behind me and telling them you also belong here, because there is far greater talent in the world than me, more driven, ambitious woman than me, kinder and more patient woman than me. Like, if I can crack the door so they can run through, then my job is done. Because nearly a decade later, I look back and recognize that while it was not easy, it was worth it.
Hmm.
So you're an influence for many people in the space, right? And whenever it was announced that you were gonna direct the 2018 movie and now the 2021 movie, I feel like that just creates even more, like, as you said, like you're showing a lot of people that you can make it. It doesn't matter if you're in a male dominant industry or nothing. Like, if you have the skills, you work hard, you know,
Hmm.
you're opening the door for a lot of people. So tell me your experience with that topic, when it comes to, you know, like.
Yeah. It. Yeah. There. It sounds picture perfect, as though like I just walked into this phenomenal position, right? But that's not to say that I didn't experience a lot of really negative things in the space. That's not like I there it was really hard. It was really hard. I was treated with a lot of respect from my higher ups, but some of my peers really struggled having me in the space as an equal. They didn't like that I was. I mean, I guess I don't know what their reasoning was for being so resistant to me being in the position that I was in, but I was treated in a way that I knew no male would be treated. You know, like I had rumors spread about me about that I got my job because of who I was sleeping with. You know, things like that that I had to like confront people with and be like, "Hey, this isn't fucking cool. Like I'm here because I work my ass off. Like it's not because of like for any other reason. Like you can't be spreading rumors." Um, there were things like that that it was very hard and it was very inappropriate, some of the behavior. And so it's not like I was I just walked into the position and was treated like, you know, I
Mhm.
belong there. But I have to think and I have to feel that just being present in the space, that I helped normalize it in a way, you know, that like it's totally normal now to see the media industry in CrossFit doesn't feel male dominated anymore. It
Right.
feels pretty even. And at the time when I started, it didn't. I felt like I was the only one there. And so it was very important to me to be outspoken in my position, not not because I wanted recognition. Like even now, like I'm not I don't invest in my Instagram, you know, my public profile, but I wanted people to know that I was there so that other women could be like, "Oh, okay, cool. She's there, so that means that I can do it too, or I belong there too."
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so it was really important to me to do that. And I hope that women in the space are treated better than I initially was. I really hope that. And I have to think that it's getting better because it is more normal to see it now.
Yeah. I definitely think it's getting better. And you were mentioning that uh, you're not like it was never about recognition, and I can see that too because of the way you are like on social media, and even I've seen
Yeah.
you at the games. You're not like this flashy person, or you post a lot on Instagram. You're just very like low key, like you do your job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not I'm not that there's nothing against that, but you will never
Yeah.
see me having a vlog. Nothing against it,
Absolutely.
but that's just not who I am. It's just
Yeah.
never who I've been. I'm not like I said, like I don't want to be a public figure b because I really like keeping to myself, but I recognize that it's important that people see me
Yeah. But
because it
I
gives confidence to other girls.
absolutely, yeah, and I can definitely see how it's been helping many people just to know, like, I can be there too at one point. And I think it was last week somebody sent me a message like something like that. Like, I love that you had Carly, I love that you had Jeannie. And at that point I didn't announce that I was gonna have you. So I was like, well, she's gonna be real excited whenever she knows that Mariah is gonna be there too, because it's just something that Michael was talking about it. I love when people, even at the point that you're at, like you still want to show people a way in, right? Like you want to open
Yeah.
the door for people, and you want to influence people as much as you can. And you're kind to people, and I love that you also say, like, uh, there's women with more skills than me. Like, I'm not the
Mhm.
best one at everything. Maybe you
Mhm.
are, but that's just the way you perceive yourself, right? Like, you,
Yeah,
you
no.
think that there's people who are more patient than you, but you worked hard, and it you didn't care like what was the adversity. Like, you said, since you were in before high school, you're like, I want to make movies, right?
Mhm.
And you're at the point that it brings me to the 2021 movie that you're directing by yourself from the beginning,
Mhm.
right? Like this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's really cool, and definitely I wanted to have you here to talk about some of that, because I really want people to be inspired by people like Heber, like you, that are in a level that a lot of us look up to. Like, wow, like, I want to be there one day. And then you share like an hour of your time with us, and then telling us a lot of things that we can only learn from.
Yeah, and
So
I wanna say that, like, a lot of, I've had a lot of people reach out to me on social media just, like, saying, like, "Hey, if there's ever an opportunity, keep doing that." Like, if anybody like, keep doing that with people that you look up to, because one of these days it's gonna open the door for you. Like, that's one thing. Like, I've watched because I came from a position as a production assistant, you know, lowest of the bottom, like, totem pole at CrossFit. Whenever I would see somebody that would come into that same position at CrossFit, I'd try to help guide them, you know, I'd try to give them opportunities. And it was always a little bit disheartening because, most of the people that would come through those doors didn't really wanna, um, really attack it as aggressively as I did. And what I walked away with was you can't in a lot of ways, you can't wait for the opportunity to come to you, you gotta go after it. You really gotta go searching, and even if, you know, you come up empty-handed, don't stop, or, you know, just, like, keep reaching out. Um, just keep reaching out. Keep
absolutely.
keep asking anyone, you know, for an opportunity, it's gonna come your way. Gonna come
Yeah.
your way.
And yeah, that's something that a lot of people have mentioned. Some of the guests that have mentioned is just always, like you pretty much miss every shot you don't take, right?
Yep. Hmm.
You take, yeah, did I say it right? Well, you
Yep, I
understand,
think
yeah.
so. Yeah, I
Okay.
know what you meant.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And it works like that in our industry. Some of the
Hmm.
opportunities I've gotten, it's because of me, reaching out to people like, hey, I can do this, and then just sharing my work, and then from there, just kind of like creating that relationship. And then at one point, whenever I don't know, they need a PA or they need
Hmm.
somebody, like, oh, I remember this person that reached out to me on social media, and
Yeah.
then from there, it can go from being a PA up until being a director of a movie.
Yeah. For real.
Yeah. Um, Talking about the new movie, which is called Next Gen.
Hmm.
Did you know, leading up to the 2021 games, at the moment you were recording, that you were gonna be in charge of making the movie for that year?
I was approached about 3 weeks before the games and was asked to make a documentary for the games, and I was like, "Oh, okay,
Okay.
we'll see what we can do here." That's not very much time leading into a CrossFit Games to prep for a film, but I think we pulled it off. So yeah,
Yeah.
3 weeks. I had about 3 weeks to prepare.
And right now, you guys are in the process of editing, right?
No, it's off to distribution.
Oh, so
That's
it's
done.
done.
Hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's done.
That's exciting.
Yep,
And getting released in July-ish, right? Before
early July,
early July.
I believe.
That's interesting. So, talk to me about that process of you being now by yourself, right? You're producing the movie or the film by yourself and directing it,
Hmm.
everything. So everything is now, because first one, obviously, you are the director of the 2018 movie, but this one's like all you since the beginning.
Yeah.
How was that experience and the process throughout the pre-production and post-production?
Man, it was definitely a learning experience. It wasn't as scary as maybe I thought it would be because I think that I feel like a lot of people in our industry suffer from imposter syndrome pretty badly. We all think we don't belong where we are. And I definitely battled that quite a bit, initially feeling like, oh, I'm not qualified to be here. I don't belong here, you know? And I think, like I said, like I think a lot of people in a lot of creatives feel that way. A lot of creatives struggle with that. And once you get into the groove of things, you're like, oh yeah, I do know how to do this. I am qualified to do this, you know? And so there were a lot of things that I realized I was like, when I would talk to some of my peers that they had no idea like the process that went behind making these films, especially like the back end stuff, like working with distribution and like all the requirements that it takes to do that. Um, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, I actually do know what I'm doing. Like I do belong here. But it was definitely very daunting to not be able to fall back on a co-director, you know? It was very daunting to not be like, "Okay, I'm doing this with someone else, or other people." At the end of the day, it's like if something goes wrong, this falls on me and only me, and so it's pretty stressful, um, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I feel very satisfied in the sense that I feel like, this is the first time that I can be like, "Okay, I've actually accomplished that childhood dream of
Hmm.
directing," you know? Because even though I was the sole director of 2018, I was in the credit sequence, but I didn't really feel like that because I felt like while editing is a huge portion of it and getting it to the finish line is a huge portion of that, like, I didn't wanna take like, I can't like, Heber and Mars were huge in that film, you know? They helped own it from start to finish with shooting. Like there was like yes, I had to go pick up some post interviews last year, but like they did a large chunk of the post interviews without me in 2018. And so there was a big part of it that still feels as though like that wasn't my solo directorial debut. 21 feels more like that. And
Yeah.
it is more nerve wracking because it is more of like, okay, like is this not going to come across as well than as 2018 or is it you know I, I feel like there's more at stake here for sure
Yeah.
on this one.
That's really cool. Like the childhood dream, now it's finally
Yeah.
2021.
Yeah.
Um, I was gonna ask you, what do you think about the current CrossFit industry when it comes to the media related? How do you feel about like the new people coming up? And I mean, obviously people like me that uh, we started not that long ago in the in the industry, in the CrossFit industry, and since 2019, a lot of people, a lot of new people starting to shoot more in the sports. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't involved before then, but from what I've heard is that the media was very very small back in the day before they started allowing more people. So what's
Yeah.
your perspective on that?
Oh, I love it. I love seeing all the like new creatives in the space. I think it's amazing because we are seeing more talent. I love seeing the kind of content evolve that's coming out of the CrossFit ecosystem because I think in a lot of ways um, we shaped like the old media team. We shaped how media that was coming out of the CrossFit space looked like. A lot of people would take that content and do something similar, but it's really cool to see now in the past few years new styles coming out of CrossFit media that we've never seen before from these other people, and I love it. It's changing the landscape. It's really I was like, man, I got to step up my game, because there's some very, very, very talented people in the space. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to see what CrossFit media is going to look like in 10 years from now, because I think that
Absolutely.
the ecosystems of media is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger, and you're just going to have new ideas and new concepts and new looks and feels, and yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Teddy says the next gen of CrossFit media.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it. I cannot wait to see what it looks like. There's going to come a point in time where it's like I think that I will phase out, like I think that like when I said that there are more talented people than me, like I mean that, like I know that. And whoever comes after me is going to probably be better than me. And I love that. Like I see myself as like, a small portion of things. I'm like a small portion of the history of CrossFit media. It's going to be way better in 5 years, 10 years from now. I don't know who's going to be at the helm of it, but I'm excited to see what it's going to be. I'm sure it's going to be better than anything I ever did.
We don't know. Stuff that you do is really awesome. And one of the things that I think it's helped the evolution of CrossFit media with all these, new creators being in the space is that some of them bring influence from other places,
Mhm.
right? A lot of the shooters or the people that are making videos now, they used to do, I don't know, YouTube videos like vlogging, and some people just travel photography, and some people in other sports, right? And they're bringing those like, I guess, how can I say, like that influence from other sports into
Yeah.
CrossFit and applying it here. That's why like we're seeing stuff now that like different colors that we didn't see before,
Mhm.
and different type of videos, and also the evolution of social media, kind of like with the reels, the hype videos, shorter videos.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's really cool. I feel like every week I find somebody new that I'm like, oh wow, this this person's doing some cool stuff in the space.
Yeah, I love it. I love to see it. I think it's awesome. I think it's great because it really did. It felt like we were a little bit on an island back in 2016, 2015. It felt like it was just us and we were kind of creating the look for CrossFit media. And now it's like, whoa, I just grown so far past that. And it's really cool to see.
Yeah. Who are some of the influences that you had growing up? It can be directors or, just anybody really that influenced you
Oh,
into being who you are today.
yeah. Whew, I mean, well, my career long inspiration has been Christopher Nolan. I mean, but that's just like at this point, I'm like, his stuff's okay. Like I love his stuff, but like that was more of like 13-year-old me fell in love with his films. And that's what kind of got me started. And so it's more like nostalgic for me to like still be in love with him. But he was a big one. Um, Other than that, it was probably unfortunately, it's not like outside people. Again, like I feel like back when I started out, I couldn't really draw inspiration from anyone in our field of work because I didn't see anyone that looked like me. I didn't see anyone that was like, okay, there's this young female that made it. And so I'm going to be inspired by her, which has really motivated a lot of the way I've approached things because I'm like, well, like I need to be a public figure if, because I wish there had been someone like me for me to look up to when I started out, somebody that made me feel as though, okay, if I just stick it out, I can get there.
Mhm.
Um, but a lot of it was also just like people who took me under their wings. So Ian Wittenberg, Torrin Simpson, Jay Vera, you know, the likes of them who were very patient with me, who really took the time to like teach me things, or when I'd have a screw up, they would be very, you know, understanding and help me work my way out of it or whatever it was. So those people really had a pretty big influence on me. Um, Even less so on with their talent, but more so with how they treated me. I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned is that you can be very talented, you can be a very talented individual, but if you're a shit person, nobody's gonna want to work with you, you know.
Very true.
So it was like that was the biggest thing that I learned is like don't be the person that people hate working with.
Mhm.
If you want to get somewhere, don't be the person that people hate working with. You have to treat people with kindness. You have to treat people with respect. You have to be patient. You have to be understanding. That's the biggest thing. And so I think those are the people that were the kindest to me were the ones that inspired me the most.
I love it. And how do you feel now that you're at that position that, I'm asking all our guests in the podcast, like who's the same question, who's your main inspiration? And they mention your name, knowing that it's something you work so hard, to get to this
Yeah.
point. Like,
Yeah, it's wild actually. It really does make it feel like it was all worth it because it
yeah.
wasn't easy. It really wasn't easy to get where I was today. I don't think it's easy for anyone, but like there were some dark moments where I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like I was ready to walk away in 2018. I was like, I can't keep doing this. And to see that it paid off in the sense that like other women feel like they belong now, it's like, oh, it was all worth it. It was all worth it. So it's really,
Yeah,
really cool to see. It's very, very cool to see.
definitely. And here we have in the comments Lillian Fuentes.
Oh,
Love to see
Lillian.
Mariah. We have some other people, Jordan, Chris, Teddy. We have a
Awesome.
question here by Enrique V Media. He says, "Hello, Mariah. What's the thing you wish you learned sooner, cinematography or business related?"
Um, I wish I knew more of the business side of things sooner. I feel like that's where I've had made the most mistakes. Um,
Why is that?
but just phew, there was oh man, there's just a lot of things on the back end of like the business side of stuff that people don't realize that you have to do. So everybody thinks that they can make a documentary, and I'm sure everybody could. It's more of like like learning what is required from like distribution and things like that. That like in 2018 when we made the films previously, Heber Cannon always really handled like the distribution side of things. He worked really closely with Tyson and the distribution company and made sure they had all the assets that they needed. And so 2018, I had to learn how to do that all by myself. And I was like, holy crap, I wish I had paid more attention back in
Mhm.
the day and like really got in Heber's ear and asked him what he was doing and what they needed and thought like tried to see what I could do to help because whew, it was a hot mess delivering 2018, trying to get them everything that they needed. So there's a lot of like that back end businessy side of stuff that I wish I had learned sooner.
Yeah, absolutely. And how about in cinematography? Anything that
Cinematography. Uh, no, not really. I kind of feel like, hmm, no, I kind of feel like it's like a creative, you kind of have your
just kind
looks
of,
and it's just,
yeah,
you stick with them, you know? Like, don't try to mimic other people. Just do what feels right to you or what you feel like you're good at or what you want to see. And I think you're solid.
yeah. I feel like everything is just kind of like every time we shoot or we do something, it's just like it's a learning experience all the time. So you're like constantly just learning. It's not like,
Yeah.
or because I'm trying to think about the same, like if he would have asked me that, like what I don't know what to answer. It's something that
Yeah.
like at the
No.
beginning I just really didn't know much about what I was doing, but I just, kept on trying and kind of like learning from every single shoot, every single situation I was in, and then just kind of like
Yeah.
learning from there. And I feel like most people in the space are, pretty much like that.
Yeah. It was actually kind of funny. I had recently someone told me that so the opening intro for 2018, I went and shot with Dave Castro in his workshop, and somebody recently told me that they studied it shot for shot, and I kind of like laughed about that because I was like, oh man, like I didn't plan those shots at all. I was just winging it, you know. I was just in there by myself. It was just Dave and I was just getting those shots. And um, yeah, I think that like just I got to control that, and like I got to shoot it the way that I wanted to shoot it,
Yeah.
and I didn't, you know. I'm trying to figure out how to word that well.
No,
I don't
I
know.
think
It
I
just
get it.
felt
It's
right, you know.
correct. It's just what you really wanted to do, things that you were
Yeah.
feeling at the moment. It wasn't like
Yeah.
something that you wanted to plan, like, okay, I'm gonna,
Yes. Y-
capture this.
Yeah, I would say probably with cinematography, just do what feels right to you.
Yeah.
Do what you think looks good. Don't I didn't go to school for film. I quit all of my college classes. I had just started out. I really just kind of got I don't want to say got lucky, but like I got an opportunity, but I've honed in my skill set by doing it. Um, and I think that's maybe what I would recommend to other people is just whatever you think looks good, you know?
Mhm. Absolutely. Just kind of like be you.
Yeah.
What are top three moments? Let me take the question out. Top three moments for you as a filmmaker. Like top
Phew.
three, and let's not put being the sole director of the 2021 movie because that's an obvious answer. But top three moments in your life that um in one way or another kind of like changed your perspective of like where it was headed, and it can be
Yeah.
anything. Yeah.
Um, hmm. Top 3 moments.
I guess that's a tough question too
That's a
because
really tough question.
let's cinch it up a little bit. Let's do
Okay.
top three moments of you filming at the CrossFit Games that you were like, okay, these are like, I don't know, Tia winning an event or something like that, that you were there filming.
Yeah. Um, I can give you oh shoot, I don't know. Top 3 moments. Uh, I feel like one of my top moments of capturing that like I was really happy with my work was I freaking love in 2016. Is that the last year in Madison or I'm sorry, Carson, I think. The
I
Josh
think so.
Bridges celebration when he won Murph.
Murph. Okay.
Oh, I
Yeah.
nailed that shot. I nailed it. So like that's definitely
Him
one of the
running
top ones.
towards like the end, like
Yeah,
celebrating.
that's one of my favorite shots of all time. And that was the first time we had ever brought out that lens, which is a 30 to 300, and I think it stops down to like 2.8, I think. So it was like super
Just
shallow, and
pulling
I was
focus
just
the whole way.
oh, I was sweating so bad. I was sweating so bad because he was running directly at me, and I was at 2.8, and I was trying to pull focus, and I lost focus a couple times, but like at the most important moments, I was able to get him in focus, and whoo, that was a good
Yeah.
one. That's probably my top shot of all time.
Yeah. How about
Um,
two more moments that were it can be like emotional for you to remember?
um, when Tia won in 2017, so I was the first person out of the CrossFit media ecosystem to ever go shoot with Tia, and that was back in early 2016, I believe. So it was right after she took second place. That was right after her rookie year, and she took second place. Um, and I got to know her because I went out to Gladstone and started filming with her and Shane out there. And when I came back, I was like, oh my god, this girl's the real deal. Like she's crazy. Like she's gonna win this whole thing. And I remember people being like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, we'll see. And then in uh in 2017, she took second again, and it was like, okay, Tia, like next year. And so when she won it, it was pretty emotional, and I felt like I had shared in that with her because I had shot with her quite a bit at that point, and I just at that point after that first time shooting with her, I was like, she's crazy,
She's
like she's gonna
special.
win,
Yeah.
she's special, she's gonna win this entire thing. And so it was very emotional for me. I remember I was both sobbing in the back in the tunnel after she won, and just yeah, that was a really, really cool moment to, like, get to share that with her.
Yeah, because um, people that work behind the scenes, you get to share a lot of moments with those athletes, right? And you get
Yeah.
to like also experience like their training, their whenever, like things that we don't see right behind the scenes after an event, like the way they're like having a hard time after a bad event. So at
Yeah.
one point, you create like a good relationship with a lot of those athletes,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
and I can
for
see that
sure.
getting emotional whenever they're also getting emotional. You almost like feel a part of their success or their failure.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. You totally do. I had definitely cried a handful of times with Cara Saunders last year just because, like, I've developed a really close relationship with her, and then just knowing the pain she was going through of being separated from her baby, I was like, "Oh, my heart broke with her," and we definitely had a few good cries together because I was like, I know what you're going through right now." And yeah, so you definitely develop some really strong relationships with, I mean, I call them athletes, but it's like they, more than anything, they're friends to me.
Absolutely. Mariah, I want to ask you one question before we start wrapping it up. What would you tell people that look up to you, that are very influenced by you, and they're new in the space of either filmmaking, directing, photography, anywhere in like the media? Somebody brand new.
Look for opportunities, go after opportunities, show people your work. Just put yourself out there and treat people really well. At the end of the day, I think, talent, people look for talent, but more than that, I think people are looking for good people. People want to work with someone who's kind and patient and understanding and humble and all of those really good things. People want to work with someone who's good and nice through and through. And so, more than that, just be a good person.
I agree. That's a great advice from Mariah Moore. All right, Mariah, we've been on for an hour and 6 minutes. I'm really thankful that you took the time to this episode with me, and I know a lot of the people listening, they really wanted you on the podcast, so I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
uh,
it's great being on
be-
here.
Before you go, what's next for Mariah Moore?
Um, well, the film releases in early July, and I believe I don't have a contract in place, but I'm pretty sure I'm being brought in for 22.
Dope, excellent. So I'm super excited to watch the movie. Definitely pre-ordering it, so it'll be ready by we have. Wait, let me see. Oh yeah, thanks for being an awesome human, Mariah. This was awesome to listen to, and I look a lot from this, from Jordan Levin.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for listening. I'm gonna have another episode tomorrow. I'm never do back to back, but it's just the way it works out. Tomorrow we're gonna
Busy.
have Vaki Itzbeth from
Oh,
Australia.
Vicky, the good
Yeah,
dude.
yeah. So he's gonna be. I'm announcing it right now. He's gonna be there tomorrow, 5:30 p.m. Central Time. So if you like this episode with Mariah, make sure you share it with your friends. Like it, click the bell. I'm really bad at this. Michael Dalton is the one that like wrap it up last time. I'm like, dude, I'm just gonna copy and paste it at the end of it. But yeah, subscribe, like it, like the post, and follow Mariah on her Instagram, which is
Mariah.Moore.
Mariah.Moore. If you want to follow me, you don't have to, but it's right there, Bound Media. But definitely follow Mariah.
I'm
All
a
right.
boring follow though.
You do great stuff. Thank you so much, Mariah. I really appreciate what you do for the space and for, you know, just everybody, that find influence in you. So I really appreciate that.
Thanks for having me.
All right. See you, everybody. Thank you so much.